Greetings. My name is Dr. David Matthew Walton, known by many as Brother Kalanji. I want to talk to y'all today about recent news and recent developments involving Black athletes, African American athletes. Admittedly, this is spawned in many ways uh, based upon Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. First, I want to say Caitlin Clark should not be dragged. She immediately and has consistently said that Sister Reese should not be criticized or anything for her end of the national championship game antics, because Caitlin herself had done that plenty of times. And a lot of people have pointedly pointed out the reaction and backlash was different for the Black athlete than it was for the white athlete, and their actions were comparable. Not 100% exactly the same, but about 95% exactly the same. What I want to emphasize to you all are several things. First and foremost, many Black sports journalists have adequately and thoughtfully covered this story, but many Black sports journalists did not. I want to emphasize to Black sports journalists your responsibility to do more than simply tell us the box score, to discuss with us about trades, drafts, mock drafts, and those things. You also have a responsibility to analyze popular culture, society, through the lens, the avatar, the metaphor of the Black athlete. You have an obligation. Now, whether you assume responsibility for your obligation or not is a different story, but the obligation still remains. Now, I'm a scholar activist. I'm assistant professor of history and director of global Black studies at my institution. So I'm a Black study scholar and a historian, but I'm a scholar activist as a Black scholar, right? But I want to emphasize this as well. So this is two. You cannot be an activist and ignore the scholar part. You cannot be a scholar and ignore the activist part. They have to work together. That being said, I have been a long time activist on behalf of Black communities in the United States of America, as well as in South Africa, right? Obviously, I'm a scholar, and I've been a scholar for over a decade, right? A trained scholar for over a decade, right? However, now this leads to my point three. However, when we're discussing, or when the discussion was held concerning the media and broader society's reaction to Sister Reese and Miss Clark, what was too void in the discussion from Black sports journalists were the recent actions of many Black athletes. That's important. You know, like beating up children, waving guns around, pointing red beams, allegedly from guns, but definitely designed to imply from guns at opposing players and opposing franchise employees. We're ignoring professional athletes hanging out with gangsters and gangbangers, right? We're ignoring one high-profile NBA player telling one rapper that another rapper and a hip-hop journalist were planning to kill him or at least jump on him, so assault him, right? What type of foolishness is that, right? Professional athletes gang banging, throwing gang signs on the field and on the court before and after games, right? In some sports, due to the nature of the sport and recent medical developments like CTE, right, of violence committed off the field against women, against innocent civilian bystanders. You know, I'll tell you this, elevators and football players aren't going good together over the last 15 years, right? We're talking about alcohol abuse, drunk driving related to alcohol abuse, right? I mean, that's right. We're talking about athletes committing crimes in foreign countries, right? I'm not just talking about someone with a vape, I'm talking about going to other countries and stealing, shoplifting, and being arrested. So on both occasions, where our national government, our federal government has to intervene to secure their release, which has further complicated with both countries involved our foreign relations. We are technically in a proxy war with one of them and potentially a pending war with the other. Particularly, it will flame up to be real wars if one invades a NATO country next, and if the other invades a U.S. ally that for all intensive purposes is really a U.S. protectorate, right? And you say, well, Dr. Walden, what does this have to do with anything? It's in that long context that many of the statements from mainstream sports journalists, regular journalists, media pundits, and the broader society are making their comments. It is within that context that they're grounding their comments, right? Now, don't get it misunderstood. The attacks on Sister Reese, 90% of them were rooted in racism, were rooted in white supremacy, were rooted in negative perceptions, in this case, of Black women. But also, what we need to understand, that it needs to be also juxtaposed against the shut up and dribble, against the don't take a knee, you son of a bitch, right? And it needs to be discussed within all of these broader contexts, because that's where we'll get our best understanding. I've been fortunate in my professional scholarly journey. I've taught athletes, Black athletes is what I'm focusing on. Some have gone to the NBA and are in the NBA today. Some have went to the NFL and are in the NFL today. Some are playing overseas, basketball overseas, right? Some are playing in the Canadian Football League, right? I've taught Black athletes at Michigan State University, Eastern Michigan University, the University of North Carolina at Pembroke, and at Western Carolina University. I've mentored many Black athletes. I've gotten many Black athletes into the top graduate schools for their fields, right? One went to get their master's in social work, a football player from UNC Pembroke, and also my fraternity brother for all transparency, right? And yeah, the nephew of T.I. Yes, that T.I., his sister's son. I've gotten them into law schools. I've gotten them into history graduate schools. And you say, what do you mean, Dr. Juan, you got them in there? I helped them with their applications, and I wrote letters of recommendations for them. I have 100% track record of getting my students into graduate school who seek graduate school. I've gotten several students into the top master's program in social work at the University of Michigan, several students that I had at Eastern Michigan, students I had at UNC Pembroke. I've gotten students into Duke University's School of Divinity. I've gotten students into various law schools, right? I've gotten students into the master's program for Black History at North Carolina Central, and I can go on and on. I want to share a story, and this is what we need more of amongst our scholar activists, Black professors, right? We need more mentoring of our Black athletes because there's a crisis, whether you want to recognize it or not, right? I'll give you an example of how positive and deliberate mentorship can change the trajectory of these Black student athletes' lives. I'll use one as a negative, meaning the lack of, and another as a positive, meaning the result of. I'll start with the negative. It's always good to start with negative so you can end on positive. I'll take Kyrie Irving. He wants to learn, he claims, about his heritage, his history, Black history, African American history, African diasporic history, African history. Whether he realizes it or not, African history. He has been misled by many folk who don't believe we're African. But he attended Duke, although it was apparently maybe only for 6 months. But Duke at the time had some of, and continues to have some of the preeminent Black study scholars and Black historians. If he earnestly had the right mentorship, the questions that he had, the journey that he was on, could have been addressed, filled by those faculty members at Duke. Even upon his leaving to go professional, he could have reached back to them. And I guarantee you they would have been more than happy to provide him with the resources. Now juxtapose that with a student athlete I am currently mentoring here at Western Carolina University. He's a Black football player who's also a thespian. That means an actor. He was in a class with one of my white colleagues. My white colleague said, you need to talk to Dr. Ward. He brought him to my office and we talked. We talked long conversations over a period of several months, hours at a time. And I put him up onto Paul Robeson, a black athlete, right? A black thespian, right? A black activist, a black intellectual, a black leader, a black organizer, right? And I gave him a book, right? Here I Stand, written by Paul Robeson, his political beliefs and worldview. And then I showed him a tabletop, a tabletop book of Paul Robeson with pictures from his early life all the way through with descriptions of what was going on in his life, right? And just Tuesday, I saw the young man. The young man came up to me and said, Dr. Walton, thank you. I want to thank you again. He was like, I've really, really gotten into Paul Robeson as a result of our talks. And he said, I was so moved, I even joined Paul Robeson's fraternity, and that's Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. I'm Kappa Alpha Psi, but Paul Robeson, Alpha Phi Alpha. And today is when he has his new member presentation as a member of Alpha Phi Alpha. He has a new direction in life, a new focus in life. And if he's given the opportunity to be a professional athlete, you won't know him for any antics off the field outside of activism and community organizing. Not for waving guns, not for stealing fucking glasses in China, not for weed vape in Russia, not for beating his woman, not for beating up somebody trying to get on an elevator, right? None of that. We need that. So this is my charge to Black faculty members at any university. This is my charge to community members, Black community members. Mentor these young Black athletes. Mentor them. And this is my charge to Black sports journalists. Stop praising the ghetto. Stop praising the gangster, right? Call out when they're making bad decisions that's going to lead to that, right? No one called out some of these athletes hanging out with literal gang bangers and gangsters, drug dealers, and people that physically harm people in our communities. They are the enemies of our communities. They are our wayward sons. I get it, right? But just as you would warn your blood son about hanging out with that element, we need to do the same with our young Black athletes. When you got athletes who claim that they're in gangs and gang banging and throwing up gang signs, retired athletes going and hanging out in the gang bang sets, recording it, going live, posting about it. That is harmful. That is harmful. That is setting Black people backwards as we are continuously to fight to move forward. You all must be oblivious to all the stuff going on that you can see in the news, in the fight that we are engaged in for the survival, perpetuation, and advancement of Black communities throughout the United States of America. This is serious business. I care less. I care not if you say, Kalanji, you're being a hater. It ain't that serious. You think it too deep. One, I'm not a hater. I love y'all more than y'all hate y'all self. I'm a lover. Two, it's been that serious. It's been that serious since 1510. And no, it is that deep. I ain't getting too deep. You're just too shallow. It's really that simple, right? Many of y'all, Black sports journalists, are praising when these young men and women make bad decisions. or on the path to bad decisions. Because you see it as, oh, they represent the culture. What fucking culture? That's not black culture they representing. They're representing gangsterism, criminal culture. And all of the black athletes who are representing black culture, they remain anonymous. That's not who you praise. That's not who you spotlight. So this is a charge to all of us, including myself. It's a charge to the black community, particularly the black elders in the community, more specifically black men in the community. This is a charge to black professors, black faculty. And this is a charge to black sports journalists. Do better. Inform yourselves. If you want to be a black sports journalist, I support you. I will patronize your work. But I need you to be informed. Read it. Right? We need more black sports journalists with a history background, with a political science black background, with a social work background, with the education background, right? That gives you deeper insights. Use those insights in your journalism. Use those insights in your journalism. That's my message. I hope you receive it well. And because I'm Brother Kalanji, I really don't give a fuck if you don't accept it well. Because the truth is the truth. And sometimes the truth hurts. And as I said, I'm on a mission. And my mission is driven by one simple fact. I love you more than you hate yourself. One love. Carter G. Woodson.